Okay, everyone, this is Caleb Warnock, and I'm going to scoop my chair in, and this is what I want to make today. Christmas trees with the Star of Bethlehem, and so let's get to it. I'm going to turn this sheet over. I made a Christmas tree outline. Well, yeah, just a tree outline, sort of a template. Let me show it to you. Here's the template, and so I just made it pretty big because I thought I could just move it up and down. And so I want to put a big tree here. So I'm just going to do a quick rough outline. Okay, I've outlined 5 trees, and because we don't want those trees to show too much, I'm just going to lightly scrub my eraser over them because I want the outline to be pretty faint. Okay, now I've got these pieces of masking tape, and I'm going to just mask this off like this. Okay, I've masked off 2 of the 5. Because they overlap, we can only do 2 at a time right now because this one is overlapped, this one is overlapped, and the one underneath here is totally covered. It is important when masking to use your finger to press these seams down on the tape. And then what I wanted to do was use poinsettia leaf because it is Christmas. So, we're going to take a piece of poinsettia leaf. We don't want to take too much. I'm going to remove that main back vein because that's not really going to be easy to mull. And so I've just got a little bit of poinsettia leaf here. 1, 2. I'm putting 2 drops of water on, and I'm going to use my glass muller. And this is my mulling slab, and I got this on Amazon. It was like $20. And they come as a kit, and I'm just going to grind that up. And because I want this to be a Christmas red color, as it grinds it turns a little bit purple. But I believe if we put citric acid in there as our mordant, a mordant is I like to use naturally occurring chemicals. There are lots of mordants in the world. Most of them are not natural, but citric acid is certainly natural. And you can get that in the canning aisle of the grocery store. And so now I'm just mulling that in with my glass muller. And I'm going to add a drop of Glare. I've used Glare once before on this channel. Glare is it's been used for thousands of years, at least 5,000 years. It was used by the ancient Egyptians, and it is made entirely of egg white, but you have to go through a special fermentation process, and when you get all done, you have this paint base that has no smell to it and is permanent and is helpful. And normally we wouldn't need to use Glare with poinsettia, and I use Glare only as I need to, but today we're going to use this rust water in a minute, and since rust by itself doesn't really adhere to the paper as well as it could, then we're going to have to use Glare for that. And so I thought, well, we'll just use Glare for everything today because it's time to start introducing everyone on this channel to a little bit more advanced botanical painting techniques. So I've made this beautiful Christmas red out of the poinsettia leaf. It may go purple because on paper there is something called sizing, which are chemicals that they use to make the paper smooth and flat and so that it doesn't stick to the paper making equipment. And sizing has a pH, and it also has a chemical response even if it doesn't have a pH, and so sometimes that alone can change the color of botanical paints, which is part of the fun of botanical paints, is that you just never quite know what you're going to get. They're unpredictable, they're untamable, that's what makes them fun. But so far this is doing pretty good. Okay, so now, I don't remember, I'm trying to make purple out of this red, and so I'm adding hydrated lime, which is either going to make it green or purple, I can't remember. I do have a book about this coming out, and the great thing, oh, it's turning green. The great thing about the book is that it's got all the color swatches, so we will be able to just open the book and know which mordants make which colors of which plants. So I'm excited for that, but that's a year away, more than a year away. They are in the process of beginning the layout. It's got thousands of photos. It's full color, of course, on every page. It's got thousands of photos and color swatches. And so it's going to take quite a while. My publishing company is Hachette in New York City. I'm with the Familius imprint under Hachette. Anyway, so here I am painting. This is the same paint as this. I've just used a different mordant. Hydrated lime, which is a form of calcium. Calcium that has been baked to about 2000 degrees. And that's interesting because some of that is turning purple. I'm going to go hit this with a blow dryer. Okay, I've dried that with a blow dryer, so now we can take off these pieces of tape and just set them aside and reuse them to do this middle tree. Gotta make sure this is long enough for the middle tree. Okay, I've put you guys on pause just to skip this forward a little bit. But now we're back. I think these two trees look pretty good. These trees are overlapping a little bit. I'm just going to seal that down, and then we're going to I'm going to clean this off a little bit. And then we'll take some of this rust water, which I made purely by accident. What I did was, I was water bathing something. Water bathing is part of the canning process when you're preserving food, and I was water bathing, and I just had a small batch. I had 2 quart jars that needed to be water bathed, and I saw online, so normally I would use the big water bather, but since I only had 2 jars, I didn't want to heat the whole giant water bather and pull it out of storage and stuff. And so I saw online that somebody said you take your mason jars and take the lids off of them, these rings, and put these rings in the bottom of the pot, and then put your jars on top of it, and you can boil them in any old pot if you do that. So that's what I did. And it worked really well, and I wasn't trying to make rust, but apparently there was some rust on the lids that I had water bathed, because when I was done there was rust water in the bottom of the pot. So that's where I got this rust from. I thought, well, that's a fun way to get rust. And it's my favorite kind of rust. It's not the black rust, it's not the gray rust, it's the orange-red rust, which is my favorite kind of rust to paint with. And I do make my own rust with vinegar and hydrogen peroxide and rusty nails in quart jars, but that takes weeks and months. I mean, I usually just let it sit for however long. There's several quarts sitting right now outside. But this was just almost instant rust. I thought, oh, look, I've accidentally figured a new way to make rust water, rust paint. So I'm painting this on here. It's turning into an ombre. I wasn't doing that on purpose. But I was not doing that on purpose. Okay, we've got the rust water on there. Now I'm going to need to wipe this clean again. And we've got 2 trees left to go. And one of them, this one that is larger, I want to use this indigo, which has just been sitting here on the mulling slab. I'll put, just because in this particular painting, glare does make sort of a smoother paint. I'm putting 1 drop of glare right onto this dried indigo. This is real indigo from indigo leaves, which you have seen me use in other videos. And I'm just going to mix this glare into here and then paint right across here. And I am doing it pretty dark, partly because this tree is overlapping this green tree, and if I do this dark, then it will look, when I'm done, like this blue tree is more forward from the green tree. So, and then that blue can just be allowed to dry on the slab. And we have 1 more tree to do here, so I'm going to go hit this with a blow dryer. Okay, I've hit this with the blow dryer, so we can remove the tape and reveal these trees. I may be able to get another use out of this tape, although it's getting pretty used up. We don't want to use it so many times that it loses its stick and stickiness, and the paint can seep through it underneath. Alright, so now I've got a tree right here that I want to tape off. And as long as that inner edge will sit flat, then this tape can be reused again and again until that inner edge will not sit flat. And now we're going to need a dark paint, and because it's going to overlap these 2 colors, so let's use a celery leaf. I would like to do green over here. And so let's use celery leaf. We're going to need very little paint. And I'm going to put 1 drop of water. This is like less than 1/4 of the leaf of celery, because all I've got to paint is that little spot. So 1 drop of water. And green paint often is more permanent if we add a tiny bit of alum. There goes my molar is rolling away. So I'm just going to add a tiny dusting of alum in here, and that should strengthen the green color a little bit. Alum is in the spice aisle of the grocery store. It's right in with the spices like the cinnamon. Alum is used in some biscuit recipes. Okay, now again, I'm really trying to avoid putting more than that 1 single drop of water on here, because that will just dilute the color. The more water I put in there, the more dilute the color will be, and I really want this to be a strong green so that we can cover up those 2. So let's try this. I've just mulled that leaf, sort of pulverized it. Did I add glare to this? I should have added 1 drop of glare instead of 1 drop of water. We don't need glare. I was just trying to use glare in every color because it does make a different kind of a paint. It definitely, if you add glare, it makes a smoother, more traditional looking watercolor, but I forgot to add it to this green. So let's see if I made enough. just painting this right over. Okay, I think that looks good. I'm going to hit it with a blow dryer. Alright, I've hit it with the blow dryer. We'll take the tape off. I don't know that that tape can be used anymore, especially if it's been under the blow dryer a couple of times. It's starting to get stiff. And I think this looks really good. I like it a lot. I would like to ground these, and I'm just trying to think of what color can I paint, because right now they're just kind of floating on the surface. Of course, maybe they look like it's a snowy day. I don't know. We'll think about that for a second. But while we're doing that, I'm going to take some petals of calendula. This is yellow calendula. And I'm going to put one drop... Oh, wait a minute. I'm going to put one drop of glare. And mull that into the glare. I'm just going in small circles because I don't have very much space. I'm basically just turning the muller back and forth. And if you turn it in full circles, it does sort of help to grind it more. And then you can grind it back and forth a little bit. And some petals and leaves are harder to mull and some are easier to mull. And you just don't know until you try it. And then I've obliterated that and made it into a nice bright yellow paint. Except that if we want it to stay yellow and not oxidize to brown, we need to add in a tiny bit of ascorbic acid, which is vitamin C powder, which is available in the canning aisle of the grocery store. It is widely used to help preserve color in canned foods, and I was making fermented vegetables this week, including cranberries and pomegranate and turnips, Swiss chard, radishes, carrots, and I added a little bit of ascorbic acid, just a tiny bit, to the fermentations to help keep the original color of the vegetables. So that's what I've done here, because I want to make this, I want this to be a strong yellow. I'm using, I don't know if you guys can see this, but I'm using a hairbrush that I actually made myself by cutting hairs out of the brush. And I'm gathering paint onto there, and then I want to make Star of Bethlehem. Nice long line that direction. Okay, that might need to be a little more paint. Get some more, because I want this to be Christmas. Oops, that's got one little hair that's poking out of it, trying to annoy me. It is better to be too thin because you can always add, but if you have the lines too thick, there's not tons you can do about that. Okay, there's Star of David. Now, again, we're back to, I really do want to ground this. Okay, I've decided to do vine black. We could do blue, but we've already used that same blue. And if we use a little bit of black, it'll just make that yellow Star of David seem, or star, I keep saying Star of David, but it's Star of Bethlehem. Sorry. Star of Bethlehem. This is vine black. I made it by putting grapevines into my kiln. And I need a drop of water in here. I have a backyard pottery kiln, but you can do this in your oven in the kitchen. You just need to heat those grapevines. They can be fresh or dried. Heat them nice and hot. Really bake them. They have to be inside kind of a metal can so that they're indirectly exposed to the heat. And then when you take them out, they crumble into charcoaly dust, and that's what this vine black is made out of. And then this particular one, you can do this lots of different recipes, but this particular one has sunflower oil in it, and a little bit of glare. Let's see, the recipe is written on here. Oh no, liquid pine, which is also called methyl cellulose. Okay, that might be a little dark. Of course, I use the methyl cellulose that is extracted with alcohol and not the methyl cellulose that is extracted with harsh chemicals. And we may just have to add a little something to that, because that's pretty black. I mean, that does make that stand out. But it might be a little nicer if we... So what I've done is I've added a dab of this rust water to some of this that I made earlier. And we can maybe just soften this a little bit by painting this brown over it so it's not so harshly black. Okay, I think that's done. I really like that a lot. Now here's the memory test. This is poinsettia leaf. Here's poinsettia right here. This is poinsettia leaf. This is celery leaf. This is rust water. This is indigo. I can't remember what this is. Does anybody remember what this is? And this is calendula. I guess I can go rewatch the video, but that's what we made that out of. And then this is grapevine down here. Merry Christmas, everyone. Thanks for hanging out with me. I hope wherever you are, you have sufficient and that you're having fun and you have a smile and that you're, having a good life. I think that's what part of what Christmas is about. Thanks for hanging out with me. I appreciate it, everyone. Bye-bye. Thanks, friends.